Last October, I decided to escape the city. I rented a cabin in Maple Hollow, Appalachia. I was gathering material for my book on folklore and ghost stories. The landscapes were beautiful, and I thought it would be the perfect place for inspiration. On my first night, I settled in and listened to the peaceful sounds of the woods. Suddenly, I heard laughter. It seemed to come from the trees. I figured it was just some kids out for Halloween. I didn't think much of it at the time. I tried to focus on my work, but I couldn't shake that laughter. It lingered in my mind. As October went on, things took a strange turn. Whispers filled the air around my cabin at night. I couldn't see anyone, but I felt it. Someone, or something, was watching me. One night, a sudden gust of wind blew out my lantern. I was left in total darkness. My heart was racing. I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me. But that feeling wouldn't go away. I heard that laughter again, often at odd hours. I convinced myself that I was just tired. I met some locals who told me stories about children who vanished in the woods decades ago. Their faces were serious. It felt like they were warning me. I brushed it off, thinking they were just trying to scare me. But every time I went outside, that uneasy feeling crept back. One evening, I decided to take a walk in the woods. I thought it would clear my head. The trees stood tall and bare, their branches reaching for the moon. I felt a chill as I moved deeper into the woods. I thought I heard whispering again, soft and melodic. My skin prickled, but I felt drawn to it. I don't know why I didn't turn back. That's when I saw them. Figures moving between the trees. They looked small, like children playing. I wanted to call out to them, so I whispered for them to show themselves, but the laughter faded quickly. I just stood there, frozen. A heavy dread sank into my stomach. What if the locals were right? In the silence, I heard a voice call my name. It was so clear. I felt chills run down my spine. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I felt trapped. Then, just like that, they were gone. I was left alone in the dark, surrounded by silence. As I walked back, my heart pounded in my chest. I thought about what I saw, or maybe imagined. I couldn't tell anyone what happened. Who would believe me? But deep down, I knew I needed to leave. I wasn't sure if I could. When I finally reached my cabin, I heard my name again, faint but unmistakable. I turned around, but there was nobody there. I closed the door and locked it tight. The darkness felt heavier that night, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that I wasn't alone. The next day, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I needed to discover more about the local legends. Maybe they held the key to understanding what was happening to me. I ventured into town, hoping to find someone who could shed light on the strange occurrences. As I walked through the streets, I noticed the locals were quiet. Their eyes followed me, filled with a mix of curiosity and wariness. I found a small cafe and stepped inside. The air smelled of coffee and baked goods, but the vibe felt tense. A couple of older men sat in the corner, murmuring to each other. I couldn't make out their words, but I saw their glances dart towards me. I ordered coffee and took a seat near the window. After a few moments, I gathered the courage to approach the men. They looked up as I approached, their discussions stopping abruptly. I introduced myself and mentioned the stories I'd heard. They exchanged glances, one of them smirking slightly, but the older one shook his head. "We don't talk much about that," he said slowly. "Those stories are best left alone." His tone was grave, sending a wave of unease through me. I pressed a little more, asking specifically about the kids in the woods. The men hesitated, looking over their shoulders as if someone might overhear. After a long silence, the older man finally admitted, "They weren't just stories. The woods take what they want, and they don't always give it back." My gut twisted. Satisfied with their warning, I left the cafe feeling more unsettled than before. I rounded a corner and spotted the local library. It was old, but well-maintained. I stepped inside, hoping to find some books or articles regarding the history of the area. I spent hours sifting through dusty volumes. I found accounts of disappearances, stories of old folk rituals, and even accounts claiming sightings of spectral children in the woods. I was enthralled and terrified. Then I stumbled upon a particular book filled with ghost stories. One tale stood out. It mentioned a group of children who vanished, only to reappear years later, forever changed. They were drawn to the forest where they had played. What lingered in those woods now was not just nostalgia but a sinister bond. I felt a pang of hopelessness wash over me. I couldn't shake the connection to what I had heard. That night, as I sat on the porch of my cabin, I heard the whispers again. Unlike before, they were clearer. The voices were distinct this time, calling my name, beckoning me. I glanced into the trees where I had seen the figures. My heart raced as I waited for something to happen. That's when I saw it. A flash of white drifting between the trunks. I stood, hardly breathing, staring at the spot. Was it a child? Or my imagination running wild? Suddenly a branch snapped behind me. I turned sharply, and the laughter erupted again, echoing in the night air. My chest tightened in panic. I wasn't just hearing things anymore. I was witnessing something. I took a step back toward the cabin, but as I turned, I felt a cold breeze brush against my face. There was something in the darkness. I couldn't let it get close. Panic took hold, and I sprinted inside, slamming the door shut. But the laughter didn't stop. It was all around me, wrapping tightly around my heart as the realization hit me. I was being hunted, and I didn't know how to escape. I was on edge the next morning, nerves frayed, sleep non-existent. The laughter still lingered in my mind, a haunting echo that didn't fade with the dawn. I needed to get out of that cabin. I couldn't stay cooped up, hiding from whatever was out there. I decided to return to the library. Surely there was more I could learn. As I drove down the winding road, the trees felt closer than before, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I shook off the thought, focusing on the road ahead. At the library, the musty smell of old paper surrounded me. I combed through more archives, searching for anything that could explain the strange phenomena. I found a section dedicated to local folklore, a treasure trove of bizarre tales and warnings. One story caught my eye. A legend about the whispering children, spirits said to lure people into the woods. Those who followed the whispers were often never seen again. I felt a chill run down my spine. I froze, staring at a faded photograph. It was an image of kids playing near a familiar grove, the same grove that bordered my cabin. They looked innocent, joyful even, but something deep within me screamed that this happiness was a facade. Suddenly, a soft voice broke my concentration. "You found the legends, didn't you?" I spun around to see a young woman, maybe in her 20s, standing beside me. Her hair was dark, her eyes wide with concern. "Yes," I replied uneasily. "I've heard some strange things about the woods." She looked around, lowering her voice. "You shouldn't go there. Her voice trailed off as she glanced towards the door, the worry in her eyes growing. "They're dangerous. They'll try to take you." I felt a surge of urgency. "What do you mean? What do they want?" She hesitated again before responding. "The children who went missing, they didn't just vanish, they were transformed, part of the woods now. If you're drawn in, you might not return the same." My heart raced. "But I'm not trying to be drawn in. I just want to understand." She stepped closer, her expression serious. "Understanding is the last thing you'll get. Leave while you still can." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me rattled. I headed back to my car, my mind whirling. I had a decision to make. The stories were overwhelming. The woods were calling to me, but they also felt like a trap. As I drove away, I noticed the sky darkening unnaturally, clouds rolling in like a wave. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement near the trees again, a glimpse of white, almost like a frock, darting between the trunks. Fear shot through me. What if the legends were true? What if I was already too late? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, practically racing down the road. Then I felt it, a cold breath against my neck, chilling me to the core. I glanced in the rearview mirror, but no one was there. Just the hollow sound of laughter echoing in the confines of my mind. Suddenly, everything went blank. The engine sputtered and died. I coasted to a stop on the side of the road. Panic surged through me as I realized I was stranded, completely alone. with the woods closing in. That's when I heard it again, the laughter. This time it was closer. I sat frozen in my car, heart pounding against my ribs. The laughter echoed again, crystal clear now, sending shivers through me. It felt alive, wrapping around the car like cold tendrils, pulling me towards the woods. I didn't want to go back there. I turned the key in the ignition, but the engine sputtered weakly, then fell silent. My palms were clammy as I grasped the wheel, trying to suppress the rising panic. The trees loomed taller, darker, and I could swear they whispered secrets just beyond my reach. Then I heard it. A soft, melodic voice floating through the air. "Come play with us." It was a haunting tune, innocent, yet laden with something sinister. The words drew me in, against my better judgment. I had to fight the urge to open the door, to follow the sound. "No, no," I muttered to myself, desperate to drown out the growing temptation. My pulse raced and a bead of sweat trickled down my back. I needed to call for help, but my phone was dead. I cursed under my breath, frustration mixing with fear. As I glanced out of the window, I noticed something among the trees. A small figure stood just beyond the tree line, barely visible. Its outline was blurred, swaying slightly as if it were dancing. My instincts screamed at me to look away, but my eyes were glued to it. The figure wore what seemed like a tattered white dress, similar to what the girl in the photograph had been wearing. I felt a chill wrap around me and I blinked hard, hoping it would disappear. But it only got closer. My heart raced. "This isn't real," I whispered, trying to convince myself. But the voice kept calling, weaving through the gaps in my defenses. "Come play with us." Panicking, I opened the door and stumbled out of the car. Every instinct told me to run, but my legs felt heavy, like they were glued to the asphalt. The laughter changed pitch, becoming more urgent, almost mocking. My breath quickened. "Get away," I shouted into the woods, though my voice came out weaker than I intended. No response, just the echoes of my own fear bouncing around me. Then I saw it clearly. A girl with hair the color of ink standing just within the shadows of the trees. She was smiling, her teeth unnaturally bright against the murky backdrop of the forest. "Why did you leave?" she asked, tilting her head. "We wanted to play." A surge of electricity coursed through me. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. This wasn't a game, it was a trap. I turned and sprinted back to my car, adrenaline propelling me forward. I fumbled with the handle, yanking the door open. I couldn't let her, or whatever was behind her, draw me in. Just as I jumped back inside, a loud thump hit the passenger side, shaking the car. I whipped my head around to see a dozen children, all with wide, unblinking eyes staring back at me. Their laughter was thunderous now, a cacophony of joy mixed with something darker. They leapfrogged around the car, chanting, "Come out and play." I locked the doors in haste, my breath coming in frantic gasps. Panic twisted my gut as I realized I had to escape. I slammed the key into the ignition once more, praying it would start. But then, everything went dark. The laughter faded, replaced by an unnatural stillness. I dug my fingers into the seat, unprepared for what lurked in that silence. Someone was in the woods, and I wasn't alone anymore. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of the darkness that enveloped me. The absence of sound was disorienting. I squeezed my eyes shut and opened them again, willing the world outside to come back into focus. The thumping on my passenger side had stopped, but I could still feel a heaviness in the air pressing down on me like a weight. My heart raced as I searched for any sign of movement beyond the car, any indication that I wasn't completely alone. I held my breath, listening for a crack of a branch or a rustle of leaves. But there was nothing. Just silence and the faint, distant echo of the laughter. Then, a shadow flickered across my windshield. I jerked back, hands gripping the steering wheel as I peered out. It was too dark to make out anything specific, just that same faint shape darting through the trees. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching me, observing my every move. I felt exposed, trapped in a bubble of stillness, while the world outside twisted with unease. I turned the key again, desperate to hear the engine roar to life. This time it sputtered and coughed but stayed silent. Panic clawed at my throat. I slammed my palms against the dashboard. "Come on," I pleaded, but the car didn't respond. All I heard was the quiet rustling in the woods, like whispers debating my fate. Then I spotted something on the edge of my vision, a flicker of white. It was the girl. She stood just beyond the trees, still smiling, her dress glowing faintly under the dim light of the moon. "Play with us," she sang, and this time her voice sounded almost like a lullaby, sweet and inviting yet wrapped in something dark. I forced myself to look away, fighting against the chant that echoed in my mind. But curiosity gnawed at me, urging me to just step out, just see what they wanted. With a shaking breath, I reached for the door handle, and it swung open just a bit, as if beckoning me forward. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from behind the car. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. I saw branches snapping and a figure moving quickly through the foliage. But it wasn't the children. This was larger, more frantic, and it was coming toward me. "Get in!" I shouted at myself, slamming the door shut. My pulse raced as I pounded the key into the ignition once more. The engine sputtered once, then roared to life. Relief flooded through me. I shifted into gear, ready to speed away, but before I could fully grasp what was happening, the figure stepped into the clearing. It was another child, but this one looked different, more disheveled and wild. His eyes were wide with fear, darting back toward the woods. He raised a hand as if trying to warn me. "Don't, they'll take you," he screamed. "Ake." Then a chilling laugh erupted from the shadows as more figures emerged, flanking him. I gasped, realizing the laughter was no longer just playful. It was filled with menace. The girl smiled wider, her teeth glinting under the moon and her eyes darkening like the forest around her. I had to act fast. My foot pressed down on the gas pedal, the car surged forward, blaring its horn. The last image I glimpsed in the rearview mirror was the girl's expression twisting into rage as the figures began to chase after me. As I shot down the winding road, the laughter faded into the night, but I knew this wasn't over. I still had no idea what waited for me in those woods or how deep the darkness really ran. The engine roared, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread tugging at my stomach. I drove faster, weaving through the dense forest, branches slashing at my car like accusing fingers. I glanced at the speedometer. It was climbing. Good. I needed speed, safety. But with each turn, the road felt less familiar. The trees seemed to close in, and the darkness felt alive, suffocating. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white. I had to find a way out. As I rounded a bend, something caught my eye in the rearview mirror, a flash of white. The girl stood at the edge of the tree line, watching me, her expression unreadable. My heart raced again, an electrical jolt of fear. Why wasn't she following? "Maybe they can't leave the woods," I muttered, trying to convince myself. But the wreckage of the child's warning echoed in my thoughts. "They'll take you." I couldn't shake the anxiety gripping me like a vice. Just then, a loud bang echoed against my car's frame. I flinched and swerved, narrowly missing a massive tree. The brakes screamed as I fought to control the vehicle, my heart threatening to leap from my chest. What was that? I couldn't let it be another trick. After regaining control, I internally debated my choices. Should I keep driving or pull over and assess the damage? Pulling over felt like inviting trouble. I pushed the accelerator down harder. The next few minutes felt like hours. I kept looking back, half expecting to see those children. Their playful demeanor turned sinister. But instead, I saw nothing but darkness and trees flashing past like soldiers standing guard. Then, a stream of light broke through the canopy ahead. Relief coursed through me. I drove toward it, thinking of safety. I was so focused on the light that I nearly missed the road closure sign. I skidded to a halt. My breath hitched as I stared at the sign. It was old and weathered, the letters faded. Road closed, danger ahead. But the light, I had to know what it was. The curiosity tugged at me again, promising enlightenment about the forest's secrets. I chuckled nervously. And what else could it be? I muttered to myself. Maybe I shouldn't go. But what if it was safety, a town, help? As I stepped out of the car, the air felt different. It shimmered somehow, almost electric. The whispers returned, but this time they were louder, swirling around me like a storm. "Stay with us," floated from nowhere, the voices chilling my bones. I stood frozen, the light flickering in the distance, teasing me with promises of escape. But what if it was a trap? That's when I saw it. Behind the glowing light was a figure, obscured yet familiar. It was the boy who had warned me. He was beckoning me closer, eyes wide with urgency. "Don't come," I heard him yell, but the whispers grew louder, drowning out his warning. The ground felt unstable beneath my feet, swaying with the collective breath of the woods. I had a choice to make, but the weight of it pressed down on me. I took a cautious step forward, realizing this might lead me deeper into danger. Then everything went dark. I gasped, jolted awake in a disorienting darkness. The electric air had vanished, replaced by a heavy silence. My heart pounded, filling my ears. I struggled to gather my thoughts. Had I fallen? Was I still in the woods? Slowly, I blinked, willing my eyes to adjust. As they did, a faint glow flickered on the ground in front of me. I squinted, trying to make sense of the shadowy figures looming around. They were there. The children. The boy stood out among them, his eyes wide with a desperate plea. I hadn't escaped after all. Panic flooded my system, and I fought the instinct to flee. It was too late for that now. "Help," I whispered, more to myself than anyone. I was surrounded, but somehow their expressions looked less malicious and more sorrowful. Then the boy stepped forward, breaking the barrier of darkness. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice trembling. "They're not like us. They want you to stay." His warning sent chills down my spine. "Who are they?" I asked, desperately trying to hold on to a sliver of rationality. He pointed beyond the flickering light towards the tree line. "The ones who roam the woods. They are shadows, but they can trap you. You need to go back." I glanced around, the other children watching, their faces shrouded in uncertainty. Could I trust him? The whispers returned, swirling incoherently, filled with more urgent tones now. "You belong to us." "No," I shouted, the word exploding from my chest. "I don't belong here." Suddenly the glow heightened, casting strange patterns on the ground. The other children winced, retreating slightly. I twisted my head, trying to identify what was changing. A low growl emanated from the depths of the woods, and the ground trembled. "Run!" the boy urged, his face strained. "Before it's too late." Instinctively I turned and sprinted toward the fading darkness from which I had come. Each step felt heavy, as if the forest itself was attempting to reclaim me. The growl grew louder, deeper, more primal. Shadows shifted behind me, quick and fluid. I didn't dare look back. Instead, I focused on the sliver of moonlight breaking through the leaves ahead. The trees glared at me, but I pushed on, searching for the way I'd come. My lungs burned, desperation fueling each frantic breath. Just when I thought I might stumble upon the road, everything shifted again. The path twisted, forked, and merged into a mass of roots and vines. I froze. I was lost. Panic clawed its way up my throat, choking me. That's when I heard it again. The whispers, now mingled with laughter, high-pitched and haunting. "You can't escape. Come back to us." "No," I screamed, willing the sound to drown out the chaos. I was trapped yet again. But I could not stop fighting. Against the bending shadows, I felt my resolve shatter. But then, behind the raucous sounds, I caught a glimpse of the boy from earlier. He stood there, raising his hand, almost as if he was anchoring himself in the chaos swirling around us. "Follow me!" he shouted. My heart raced. I took a shaky step toward him. I had to trust him. As I moved, the night seemed to close in. But somehow, he felt like my lifeline, a flicker of hope amidst the dark. And then, just as I reached for him, the ground beneath me gave way. I fell into the dark and all went silent. I landed hard, the damp earth absorbing the impact. Instantly my thoughts spiraled. Where was I now? The air was thick with an unexpected warmth that contrasted with the chill above. I struggled to rise, disoriented, and the sounds of the forest faded. A faint light flickered nearby. I crawled toward it, desperate to find some semblance of safety. As I neared, the glow transformed into a swirling mist that glimmered like stars caught in a net. My heart raced. The beauty was mesmerizing but also unsettling. "Stay away from that," a voice broke through the confusion. It was the boy again, emerging from the mist. He looked older, almost ghostly, yet his eyes held a fierce intensity. "It's not what it seems." "What is it?" I managed, trying to shake off the residual dizziness. The light continued to pulse, beckoning me with an unearthly allure. The boy bit his lip, glancing at the mist warily. "It's a trap. They use it to lure you in. You don't want to get too close." I stood frozen, caught between fear and intrigue. The whispers resumed, now more distinct, coaxing me. "Join us. Don't you want to belong?" With a jolt, I realized those voices belonged to the other children. The ones I had seen before, the ones who seemed lost. I opened my mouth to respond, but the boy interrupted. "Don't listen. They are tied to the shadows. You can't trust them." His urgency snapped me back to reality. I followed his gaze, scanning for other threats, but the mist held my attention. I wanted to step forward, to understand what it meant, but something nagged at me. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, desperate for answers. "You're here too." He hesitated, his young face contorted with something that looked like regret. "I was trapped like you. I thought I could save them, but now I need to save you." Before I could respond, a sudden wind whipped through the glade, carrying the coldness of a shadow past us. The mist danced violently, and I took a step back, instinct kicking in. I felt a presence building, something sinister lurking behind the soft mist. "Come," the boy called, grabbing my wrist. "We can't stay here." I stumbled after him, chasing the fading glow of the trees, their branches twisting and clawing at the night. With each hurried step, the atmosphere shifted around us. It felt heavier, as if the woods had grown alive, intent on keeping us. Then I heard it again. Giggling mingled with the whispers, a chorus of haunting familiarity. "Come play with us," they chanted, their voices echoing in the silence. The boy tightened his grip. "No, they're lying. We have to break through. Trust me." Then I saw it. The boy's faint outline blending into the shadows just ahead. A heavy darkness swirled behind him, creeping closer, and the whispers grew deafening. With panic rising, I pushed myself beyond my limits, but I could feel something dark, taunting me from behind. Just as we reached a small clearing, the mist erupted. Shadows darkened around us, swallowing the light. I felt a cold grip on my shoulders, pulling me back toward the darkness. "No!" I screamed, yanking free from the grasp. But even as I turned to run, everything went black again, and I stumbled into something new. I caught my breath in the silence that followed, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. What was this place? What had I just escaped? Then I heard it. A heartbeat that didn't belong to me echoing from the shadows. The heartbeat grew louder, a steady thrum that sent shivers down my spine. I squinted into the darkness, trying to make out any shapes or movements. My instincts told me to run, but it felt like my feet were glued to the ground, caught in the unnatural stillness surrounding me. "Where are we?" I whispered, scanning the void for the boy. But I saw only a thick, claustrophobic blackness. The air felt heavy, forcing down on me. "Just a little further," came the boy's voice, faint but persistent. Panic surged within me. His tone was distant, as if he was fading away. I took a cautious step forward. The heartbeat pulsed in my ears, growing in intensity. It felt alive, almost taunting me. I turned back, hoping to retrace my steps, but the path behind me had vanished, swallowed whole by the shadows. "Help!" I cried, unsteady. "Don't leave me!" The only answer was a low rustle, as if something unseen moved within the dark. I strained to listen, my heart racing. The whispers returned, now louder, harsher. "She's lost, just like us." "No!" I shouted, suppressing a tremor of fear. I didn't want to be lost. My breath quickened. "Where are you?" "Stay with me," the boy urged, his voice cutting through the suffocating darkness. I focused on it, relieved to have even a small anchor. Then, as if sensing my wavering resolve, the shadows shifted. Shapes began to emerge from the darkness, twisting and folding like smoke. My pulse raced as the first glimmers of familiar silhouettes took form. They were the children from before, their faces twisted in smiles that sent chills racing through me. "Come play," they sang in unison, their voices melodic yet hollow. Every instinct I had screamed at me to flee. "Don't listen," the boy shouted again. "They want to trap you." I clenched my fists, torn between the strangers' enchanting laughter and the boy's desperate warnings. My thoughts raced. Was this the same game they played with him? Luring innocent souls into a world where no return was promised? The children continued to creep forward, their figures writhing as though they could shift through the fabric of reality. They reached out, tiny fingers brushing my arms as they whispered, "Come be with us. Forever." I recoiled, shuddering with instinctual fear. "No!" I yelled, feeling both defiant and terrified. "I won't!" At that moment, the boy broke through the cluster of shadows and stood protectively in front of me. "We have to push through." With a surge of resolve, I bolted past him, my legs pumping hard. The whispers turned into a chaotic chorus, each voice battling for dominance, but I focused ahead. I couldn't look back. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand wrap around my ankle, tripping me into the earth. My breath hitched as I hit the ground hard. Fear clawed at my throat as the children's laughter echoed around me, growing darker, more sinister. Then I felt it again. The heartbeat. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a pulse within the very earth beneath me, violent and alive. It surged upward, a desperate rhythm, shaking the soil. That's when I saw it, a shimmering portal of light nearby, flickering like a candle barely holding on. The moment felt achingly brief. Could I reach it? I pushed myself up, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "This way!" I shouted to the boy, who was still fighting against the encroaching shadows. But something shifted in the dark and that heartbeat roared, drowning my voice. I could feel it before I saw it. A figure, looming above us, cloaked in darkness. I froze, every bone in my body screaming to flee. Whatever that was, it was far from friendly. In that critical moment I had to decide, leap into the light or face the unknown. I lunged toward the flickering portal, the luminous glow nearly blinding against the oppressive darkness. As I ran, the whispers swirled furiously around me, a cacophony that threatened to overtake my senses. "Join us," they beckoned, wrapping around me like chains. "You belong here." Fear propelled my legs faster. I could almost hear the boy behind me urging me on, shouting against the rising tide of laughter. The shadows clawed at my feet, tendrils of cold air grasping for my ankles, pulling me down into a void. But I couldn't stop. I could see the light more clearly now, urging me forward, promising safety. Just as I turned back, I caught a glimpse of the boy. He was struggling against an unseen force, the darkness twisting around him, pulling him toward the mass of haunting laughter. "Don't look," he shouted, his face contorted in desperation. "You have to go." I hesitated, my heart wrenching, but I couldn't let myself be caught. I took one last look at him. He was swallowed by shadows and the darkness pulsed ominously, thrumming with a lost heartbeat. With a gasp, I sprinted toward the portal. The whispers crescendoed into frantic cries, drowning out everything else. "No, not her! She's ours!" I felt the pressure build around me, an invisible force trying to weight my feet, to drag my being away. But with one final push, I soared into the portal. Light enveloped me, shining brilliant warmth that banished the shadows, shattering their grasp. The world twisted and spun, light and dark melding into a blur. I squeezed my eyes shut, feeling like I was being pulled through time as a shockwave of energy surged through me. Just as quickly as it started, everything went still. I blinked, eyes adjusting to the brightness. When I took a breath, Instead of the heavy scent of damp earth and decay, I inhaled crisp mountain air. I was outside again, standing at the edge of a forest clearing, the sun riding high in a sky of blue, but my heart still raced. I fumbled around, checking for any signs of the portal, the shadows, or the boy. But there was nothing, just the rustle of leaves and the sounds of birds singing overhead. Had it all really happened? Was it real, or a vivid nightmare? Then I spotted something glimmering beneath a nearby tree, a small glint of white fabric half buried in the leaves. I approached cautiously, my heart sinking as I recognized it. It was part of the dress I saw on the girl. A whisper escaped my lips. No. As I knelt down, the laughter echoed faintly, weaving through the trees, lingering just out of reach. I shot up from the ground, scanning the forest, mind racing with each heartbeat. What if I hadn't truly escaped? I stumbled backward, pivoting to flee, but I froze as I saw movement. Dark silhouettes darting behind the trees, fleeting like shadows in my periphery. My breath quickened. Were they watching me? Were they waiting for another chance? I darted towards my car, adrenaline racing against the dread creeping back inside. My mind flickered to the boy, the desperate warning in his eyes. They want you to stay. I reached my vehicle and yanked the door open. The engine roared to life on the first try as I sped away, heart pounding. The road twisted like a snake, and I resisted the urge to glance back at the forest, knowing the whispers might still linger on the wind. But just before I made the turn onto the highway, the last echo of laughter danced through the air again, a low, haunting melody that felt like a promise and a threat. Come back. It shivered down my spine, leaving me with lingering uncertainty that would never fully fade. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The woods still held secrets, and whether they were supernatural or simply rooted in tragic history, I had no way of knowing. I moved back to the city shortly after that, but sometimes I still dream of that boy and the children who wanted me to play. I've never returned to that part of the mountains. It changed how I see things, how I hear laughter in the trees when the wind blows through. I still think about it sometimes, whether they still wait for me in the depths of the woods, forever whispering, "Come back,